Post-Dispatch columnist joins us on a Tuesday. I know everyone thinks it's Monday.
I know, I do.
But it's really Tuesday, which means, well, we check in with...
Means it's Tuesday.
Means it's Tuesday. Means tomorrow's Wednesday. Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. Good morning, Tony.
Morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Tony.
I want to get to your column in which you talk about Catharine Hathaway. But first, let's sort of recap what transpired over the last couple of days down in Jefferson City. It seems like Chairman Barnes and Ed Dowd, things got a little heated on Friday or Thursday.
Well, Chairman Barnes got a little frustrated when he has been asking Ed Dowd, who's one of Governor Greitens' attorneys, for all sorts of documents and been getting basically the runaround from the various attorneys for the governor, who then go and hold news conferences and say this is a kangaroo court because they haven't had the governor appear, so they subpoena the governor, they subpoena the governor's records. And what happened last week is a state representative who apparently is friendly with the Greitens camp, Dowd gives him, or one of the attorneys gives him, one of the documents that Chairman Barnes has been asking for, and that representative starts to present that document in the hearing, and Jay Barnes says, wait a minute, I've been asking for that for weeks. How'd you get that? And he went off on Mr. Dowd. And I think part of this is an effort for Chairman Barnes to basically let them know we're not going to be intimidated. We're not going to back down on this. This is our process. This is a legislative process. This is our authority, and you can produce the documents and you can produce your clients or not. And if you don't, the results are what the results are.
What's interesting about this is the governor keeps complaining that he's not getting his side of the story out. He's now officially been subpoenaed, and they're saying he might not testify.
Yeah, I'd say it's very unlikely. He's officially testified to scheduled to testify next week. I'd say it's very unlikely that the governor testifies, and I'm not sure what excuse they'll come up with. I'm sure they'll tie it to the criminal case or whatever. But if the governor indeed does not testify, and I know that he's been asked to testify over and over again, when the hearing was when the Barnes Committee during the regular session was meeting mostly in secret and interviewing witnesses behind closed doors at the Jefferson City Police Station, I know they offered the governor the same opportunity then, and he declined. If the governor doesn't appear, I think it makes what already looks like a very likely impeachment almost automatic at this point, because he's done everything he can to avoid having to answer any questions from any official authority.
Which is interesting, because this is not a criminal case. This is an impeachment case, and so people can say, "Boy, you're not giving your side of the story. That means you don't want to tell your side of the story, which means then it's worse than what we even think."
Well, and it's, I think we have to understand this is a political process right now. What's happening in Jefferson City, while very much related to the criminal process, because the criminal process is the justification for the political impeachment process. But this is a separation of powers issue. The governor is not in charge. The governor's attorneys are not in charge. It doesn't matter how many former U.S. attorneys he hires as his counsel, they're not in charge. And that's what is going on right now, is there's this power play. And what the governor's attorneys are doing are trying to win some sort of battle in the court of public opinion. But if he doesn't show up and testify ever to give his side of the story that they love to put out there on Twitter and on Facebook, but not in a court and not in the House, it's not going to end well for the governor.
I guess we also found out that he had 5 phones.
Yeah, apparently, that was part of the testimony last week. Is they had the forensic expert who would examine this at least one of the governor's phones during the court case, and of course, we remember the court filing saying he didn't find anything. Well, he didn't find anything on one of the phones that he looked at, but it turns out the governor had 5 phones. And so the fact that the forensic expert hasn't found anything doesn't necessarily mean the photo doesn't exist, it didn't exist. In fact, he testified that it very well could have been destroyed, could have been used on Confide, all sorts of things could have happened for him not to be able to find it as a forensic expert.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things that just keeps happening in this case. We don't live in a zero-sum world. Multiple things can be true. It can be true that they didn't find the photo, and yet the photo was still taken.
Yes, but it also could be true that they couldn't find the photo because there was no photo.
Absolutely. And it could be true that the governor still told the woman that there was a photo, which is what her testimony was.
Right.
All of these things together are evidence in various forms in either a criminal case or a political case. And the thing that has to be remembered about what's going on in Jeff City is the burden of proof there is not the same as it would be in a criminal case.
Yeah, Tony, I want to get to this column you wrote about Catharine Hathaway, who at one point was was a competitor to Eric Greitens in the primary. Greitens wins. She was former Speaker of the House, and you point out that they're going after Chairman Barnes for him speaking to the FBI. Give us a brief synopsis of your column.
Well, there's two things going on here. One, every time the governor's office is losing in the court of public opinion, they attack somebody else. They attack the media. They attack the woman. They attack George Soros. They attack the prosecutor. And now they're attacking State Rep Jay Barnes. And the criticism that came from Catharine Hathaway is astounding to me. She's a former U.S. attorney. Her job used to be to prosecute criminal actions, including political corruption. She was involved in the prosecution of former state senator Jeff Smith over a postcard that he allegedly was involved in related to a congressional campaign. This is a woman who used to work very closely with the FBI. And her criticism of Chairman Barnes is that when he heard some testimony that sounded like a possible federal crime to him, he picked up the phone and he called the FBI and said, "I think you all ought to know about this." That is something that the FBI encourages in state capitals all across the country. And my column was about the fact that it's astounding that this former U.S. attorney, who absolutely knows that fact, issued a public statement discouraging state lawmakers from speaking to the FBI if they hear or see information that might be a federal crime. It's absolutely a crazy statement for her. It shows you the level at which they will go to defend the governor. They don't have the facts, so they just keep taking their shoe off and pounding it on the table. But this one's really dangerous because FBI agents are in Jeff City all the time. They walk the Capitol, they talk to lawmakers, they talk to the various general counsel and attorneys and all of that, and they encourage folks, hey, you know what, if you see something, if you hear something, it doesn't seem right to you, here's our card, give us a call, we like to know stuff. And sometimes they're investigating and sometimes they're not. But for a former U.S. attorney to encourage lawmakers to not call the FBI when they hear or see something is astounding. And I was glad to see that after my column ran this week, a former U.S. attorney retweeted it and said, "This is amazing. I can't believe one of my former colleagues actually encouraged this kind of behavior."
Tony, we're also sort of, am I reading between the lines, or is there anything more than that the FBI is asking questions about undue influence on some elected officials on how they're going to vote one way or the other?
There's no doubt that the FBI is asking a lot of questions of a lot of people that have at least some connection to what's going on with the Greitens case. And I know that CNN reported the other day that various lawmakers have said they have been questioned by the FBI as to whether or not folks related to the Greitens camp are putting undue pressure on them to try to gain their vote against impeachment. And so that is one of the things that's going on. The FBI is asking questions about dark money, and they're asking questions about this impeachment process. And amid that, the attorney for the Greitens campaign and for a new Missouri and also some of the governor's employees has been basically issuing statements saying, don't talk to the FBI.
Tony Mester, never a dull moment. Thanks for checking in, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.